Donald Maranell. I was born in Spirit Lake, Iowa, but I've lived most of my life in Stonington now. When you fall in love with a Stonington girl, that's where you end up. I was first a machinist mate, made the rank of Chief Petty Officer, and was commissioned and retired as a Lieutenant Supply Corps Officer.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you went into the military?
Well, actually, it was a little bit of a rebellion and a little bit of, it was inevitable it was going to happen. When I was in high school, I was nominated to go to West Point or Annapolis. First alternate for West Point, and I think third alternate for, no, it was third alternate for West Point and first alternate for Annapolis, and I was told I was going to go. My dad was giving me a hard time about working on all of the paperwork, and so as a rebellion thing, a bunch of my friends were joining the Air Force. I went to visit a senior chief by the name of Carlson at the recruiter's office, and next thing you know, I was on my way to United States Navy as part of the nuclear power program. So it was a little bit of rebellion that my dad was pushing me hard about going to Annapolis, and I decided, well, my friends are joining. I didn't see, money for college was hard. I'd had offered scholarships and stuff, but it was still going to be difficult. So nuclear power program and then a GI Bill was the way to go.
How did your parents ultimately feel once you rebelled and made that
Once at the very end, they were actually very proud.
Okay.
Something that's kind of funny about that. I don't know if my mother was ever happy about her baby leaving home, but she was very proud of me. And my father, absolutely proud. He bragged about me all the time.
What was your first assignment after basic training?
Okay, well, there was some machinist mate A school in Great Lakes, followed shortly by Vallejo, California. I was at the nuclear power, the classroom phase, which was 6 months. It's kind of like going to college and they shove a fire hose of knowledge in your mouth, open it up and feed it into you. It was a very, very academically challenging time. And then 6 months in Idaho Falls, Idaho, going to a prototype where you're actually in the middle of the desert operating a nuclear power plant, learning how to do that. And then, right before that, for a few months, I was on a destroyer while I was waiting for school to start off, and then grotting in submarines for the rest of my career.
And any specialized training within that time, or was some of that?
Yeah, the nuclear power training would have been the specialized part. It was basically, 6 months of school, and it's really, you get the credit, how you can get credit for military schools. I got over 2.5 years of college credit, the value of that, in 6 months of academic training when I was in Vallejo.
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
I think dealing with people from other areas. I had this, some would say naive, but I think I had a trust in people that they meant what they said and they would do it and you could trust them. So when I was early on, when I got on submarines, it all changes because it's a high quality group of people there that, the ones that are trouble get weeded out. They never qualify and they get shipped out. But when I was on a destroyer and going through school, trusting people, I had to learn to not necessarily trust them right away and let them earn my trust. So that was probably the hardest adjustment.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while you were serving?
Lifelong friends. I just had a reunion that actually I coordinated in Mystic, where we had about 100 people. 40 some of them were shipmates and many of them from my time when I was on the Kamehameha, my first submarine. And Joe Tokars and Rick Hirsch, some of these guys, they're all there. Mike Ratway, who was my leading first at the end of my first tour on Kamehameha, he was there. It was like seeing my dad again, I mean, this guy, for my whole life, I've used him as an example of a mechanic's mechanic. Previous reunions, different people have been there. Mike Jones, who was my sea dad, when you first assign somewhere, they give you someone with experience and they make them kind of like your dad, see dad. And he and I text and talk all the time now. You know, we'd been apart for a while, but you know, you get these reunions and you run into people and we start talking about things, and it's just like we haven't been apart from each other. But I have so many friends, both officer and enlisted, because of the way I crossed over and became an officer at the end. That my closest friends, I might see once or twice in a year or in a couple years, but they're like brothers, all of them.
When you had the opportunity for some off-duty time, what did you do for recreation?
Well, it doesn't look like it anymore, but I used to run marathons. The ships always had softball teams and stuff like that, so I did softball. I tried basketball for a while when I was in, but being 5'7.5", 5'8" on a good day, and back in those days, everybody thought they were Julius Erving or some of those John Havlicek and stuff, and it got a little rough for a little guy like me. So I stepped into the world of being a referee, and it preserved my fingers and my bones from not getting broken doing that. So I helped with that, but softball, and then a lot of running. We had to do, for physical fitness, we had to do that later on in my career. It wasn't when I first came in, but I used to run marathons.
When your service time ended, do you recall that day and what that was like for you, and where did you go from there? Yeah,
my last day was actually, I served 20 years and 2 days, and I always say that I didn't work hard the last 2 days. My last day was my retirement ceremony at the historic Nautilus and the Submarine Force Museum. I remember it like it was yesterday. Played proud to be an American. And my now 30-year-old son was 2 then, and I look at those pictures and it just seems like it was yesterday. But it was fun there that I knew some of my friends that were going to be showing up. They were part of the ceremony. But then when I looked out, I saw so many people that I served with. And I didn't really do invitations. It's just kind of announced on the base kind of thing. And so many people that from my past and my career showed up just out of the blue. It was fun. Great day.
Was it a readjustment for you, to go from that 20-year career and was that a big readjustment for you?
Well, yes. When I got out, I started working for first was Nuclear Energy Services. We're doing like an inventory logistics kind of project at Millstone. And then later on I went to McLaughlin Research, which was a Navy contractor around here. So some of that was okay, but as time went on, not too long after that, I became first selectman. And I was for 6 years, and a big thing was a difference in the work ethic. And I'm not saying it was bad, but the way people looked at the way it goes is completely different than a Navy mindset or a military mindset. Everybody knows their place in the military, and you know where you kind of stand with things, and it all works very harmoniously. And some people think that you just salute and say aye aye all the time, but backup of your superiors to tell them when you think they're making a mistake is an important part of the success of a unit.
How did service impact you overall?
I would say that I matured a lot quicker and differently than my classmates back at home. I mean, years later, I'm going back, and there's still some small town mentality kind of thing. I got to look at the world in a bigger picture kind of thing. But going through their nuclear power program and the standards set by Admiral Rickover set a mindset in me on how to look at things. I'm not one for polishing a cannonball. Just don't have time for a whole lot of flowery stuff. Let's just get to the facts and let's go do it. And so I think that, and the push of when you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you don't have integrity, you have nothing. Integrity is very big, that I came out of that.
Are you part of any veterans organizations?
Most any I can find, yes. I'm a life member of the Disabled American Veterans and the VFW and the American Legion, Post 58. I'm the adjutant there and the treasurer. So, which means that I pretty much do everything, and the commander, I take all the notes, and during the meeting I kind of help move it along. So I'm the one paying all the bills, membership, arranging things. I get some help from the deputy, but people would know when you're in a veterans organization and you get some elected position like that, you're doing a lot of the work. So let's see, those who sub-vets, somewhere in their vest, life member there too. I get chasing down annual dues, it's just too hard, so just paying money. So,
What are some life lessons you've learned from your military service?
don't blindly trust people. Let that earn that first. Don't go to someone with just the problem, come with the solution. The completed staff work, that's one of the bigger things. Brian McGuire, he was my lieutenant at sub school, is the one that taught me that concept as a chief petty officer, and I've used it ever since then. And forceful backup. So, when somebody is going to make a mistake, don't just sit there and watch it happen because they're higher ranking or more important, or it's really their job. If you start seeing something wrong, kind of like if you see something, say something. It's the same idea. Is that if you have an opinion on something, share it. If you're told no, then salute and carry on. But that interaction, I think, is what helps everyone be successful, instead of just watching to see until somebody falls down.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
That even if they didn't see combat, there can be scars and things you have to deal with. It's like in a submarine force. I mean, there's still times that when I'll go through a period where I start thinking about things happening to me during my career. In 1982, I was on the USS Greenling, and we had a major underway fire. Hundreds of feet underwater in a tube that's all sealed up, and you have a major fire. You can imagine how fast the smoke gathers. And going through that thing, and I ended up having to go through that smoke-filled area to get back into the engine room and to help operate that and shut it down. And I learned a lot about myself that day. Actually, the way the Reader's Digest condensed version, because if I told you with the detail I normally do, you would have to be a submariner to understand. But we had that major fire. We pull into port in Puerto Rico. We had fire in the shore power cables and loss of all AC, alternating current, so all electricity, which are problems, right? Fire called away in the laundry. It was a flashing light. People just all jumpy, right? Flooding was called away because they improperly drained a hatch, and then when they were opening up, water was coming in. Again, people jumpy. So how many things have gone wrong that day, right? And then later on that night, one of the guys in M Division that I was in, Machinery Division, was up on the pier, had been to the enlisted club and had a few drinks, decided he'd had enough and he was going to swim home, so he jumped in the water, man overboard. So it was a very busy day. Everybody was jumpy. But that was the day I would say that the Navy turned from being, fun. This is a fun adventure, kind of like Robin Williams and Hook. What a great adventure. It kind of turned into a job.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
There's a lot of great reasons to be in the military, even with 20 years really that we had of a continual war on terrorism, and people feeling like people fought and died for no reason. I think you've got to take the long look at that and think differently of that. It takes a lot of courage to give up and leave your home and go through something like this, but you won't regret it. And there's great programs for education afterwards. You'll make friendships that will last a lifetime, and you'll learn life lessons that I don't care what Ivy League school you go to or what state school, wherever, that you will learn in the military that's just not available anywhere else.
Lastly, is there anything else you'd like to add that we maybe haven't covered?
The real thing that I'd like to let people know is that, you know, there's mom, dads, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, wives that have stayed behind during and supporting, you know, the military servicemen. But wives, you know, they're the unsung hero. Moms and dads doing that same type of thing for the younger guys that just do one tour and get out. But, you know, the career sailor, the career military guy that's married, right, is partners with their wives to make that career happen.